Spike TV.
Debt and the political theater surrounding it. Our entire mega panel now joins up with our special guest, Governor George Pataki from New York, joining the panel. Majority Report host Sam Seder, liberal commentator Imogen Lloyd-Webber, and former Governor George Pataki. They've basically heard from both of us, and we've also heard from Senator Tom Coburn. Sam, your thoughts on Coburn's decision to up the ante, so to speak. Tax code, loopholes, eligibility, means testing on entitlements, $1 trillion out of defense, and basically says if you don't go for the full $9 trillion, that you are not actually engaging the problem. Your thoughts?
Well, I mean, I don't think our number one crisis, frankly, is the debt or deficit at this point. I think our number one crisis is jobs. With that said, I mean, I applaud Senator Coburn for talking about cuts of defense. I applaud him for realizing that we have a revenue problem in this country. We talk about spending in terms of GDP of this country. Well, in fact, our revenue is far lower relative to its natural baseline relative to GDP than our spending is higher. That's simply a fact. And so at the end of the day, I would rather see a jobs program, but I appreciate at least that there is some measure of a modicum of honesty coming from the right that we have a revenue problem.
Oh, yeah. Go ahead, Imogen.
Well, this is a proper, sensible discussion, which is what the American people want and deserved. The most interesting poll to me before the midterms was that 80% of Americans wanted Republicans and Democrats to work together, to talk the problems through. Only 1 in 5 Americans think that deficit reduction can occur through spending cuts alone. But 1 in 5 Americans seem to be holding the rest of America hostage. And that's certainly going on in Congress at the moment. It is an absolute disgrace, and it's a betrayal of the American people.
To what Sam was saying, Governor, there's this sort of framing that comes up, say, listen, we can either talk about the debt or we can talk about jobs. We all know that the decline in jobs creates a decline in revenue, which then creates more debt. Your view on reconciling job creation and ultimately revenue generation with cutting?
Well, I think the point about jobs being a critical priority for this country is absolutely right. And you don't create jobs in the private sector by raising the taxes on small businesses, by raising the marginal income tax rate, or by not dealing with the deficit. They're very much interrelated.
How do you match the two? Because Senator Coburn also
take a
argued
look at how you match the two. And I think, respectfully, you're wrong about 20% holding hostage, because at least on the Republican and conservative side, you have plan after plan. You have Paul Ryan's plan. You have Senator Toomey's plan. You have Coburn's plan. Where's Nancy Pelosi's plan?
Actually,
Where's Harry Reid's plan?
Is not
Where's
holding
Barack
this
Obama's
country.
plan? And let me just make one more point.
I have to stop you for a second. There is a plan out there. It's the people's budget. It cuts the deficit by $5.6 trillion over the course of 10 years.
It was rejected 97 to nothing.
Listen.
In the
but
Senate, that's not Republicans.
Listen, the plan
97 to nothing.
I'm not a Democratic senator. You asked, is there a plan out there to do it? There is one.
Right.
It doesn't make it.
Let's break this back in two. Let's chew off one thing at a time. Let's just stick with jobs and debt right now. We'll come back for Democrats and Republicans later.
A solution was laid out there, and it's not the president's budget that was voted down 97 to nothing. That couldn't be scored by the CPO because it was so vague. What is out there is the Bowles-Simpson bipartisan report. It cuts $4 trillion out of the deficit. It raises revenue by close to $1 trillion, but at the same time, it's raising revenue by closing loopholes and getting rid of subsidies. It's lowering the marginal tax rate on individual income taxpayers to 23%. It's lowering the corporate rate to 22%. Now that's going to get small businesses to hire. And it's not a narrow band of conservative Republicans holding the American people hostage. It's the president's bipartisan report that he threw in the wastebasket when it came out.
But let me ask you.
Wait a second. It's not a bipartisan report. The report was never ratified. It needed 14 votes. It never got it. It was two-men report.
Two-men's report.
It's not. There was no commission. But that's simply a fact.
Senators, 3 Democrats, 3 Republicans.
But no. But let's stick to policy. Hang on a second, Sam. Hang on a second. What the governor is asserting, right or wrong, is that if you go in and cut tax rates while simultaneously reforming entitlements, while simultaneously cutting defense, while simultaneously cutting loopholes, that you may be able to reduce the deficit and create jobs. Correct. Do you agree with that?
I do not believe that if any business owner out there will tell you that the reason why I'm not hiring people is because I don't have a couple extra dollars in terms of taxes. It's because there is no demand.
I was with a business owner yesterday who said
if I own a bakery, I'm not going to hire another baker unless I know there's people coming in to buy more cakes, and that's not happening.
So you would. raise taxes on businesses to pay.
I would raise taxes.
Ultimately, you want to create jobs, right?
Rate that is somewhere in line where so that we are no longer at a 60-year low in taxes.
Right.
We have all this extra capital that is sitting in the hands of people who are simply investing.
Nobody questions the statistics. The question, listen, we all know the numbers. 20% of people unemployed. We got a long list of problems. We need teachers. We need nurses. We need infrastructure. We got tax policy. We've got subsidy policy.
To do those
the
things.
Question is, how do we marry all those things to actually create work? Very quickly, and then I got to take it.
Okay. I did it. Deficits, and everybody said, well, you can't just cut spending, you have to raise taxes. I cut taxes, cut the size of the government, and turned it around to the point where when I left office, we not only had multiple billion in surpluses, we had record investments in education.
And what was the key to the success?
The key was to create an economic climate where the private sector said, yes, we can invest, it's worth the risk, and reduce the size of the government to the point where it was sustainable with lower tax rates.
I want to take
it worked, Sam.
I
don't know
take
what
a break.
you've run.
It's a leverage bubble. That's what the key is. The key is a leverage bubble.
Well, speaking of the leverage bubble, we are going to come back with the panel. Imogen will get a few more words in, I promise. The real deal to tackle our massive debt, is it what you just heard or something completely different? The answer may lie in 1945. Do we need to restructure that leverage bubble? We'll debate that after this.